Hi, this is Mike Hibbert back with another Python Django tutorial for you. Now in this tutorial we're going to cover the brand new migration system that's going to be included with Django 1.7. Now previously there were no migration systems by default, and the only other migration system that you could have used, or most people would have used, would be the South module. Now the South module is very good, but the guys at Django decided that it was probably a best idea if the framework had its own migration system built in there by default. And to be honest, I quite agree with them. I see other frameworks around the world kind of doing the similar thing, so I think that Django, yeah, it's probably a good idea that it has it batteries included, so to speak. So how do we actually do the migrations in the new system? Well, you'll be surprised because it's actually very, very simple. And if you've done South, then you're probably going to find this a nice little easy change in your pace of how you do stuff. Not exactly the same, but more along the same lines. So something that you'll find a bit of a relief, and there's not going to be any massive upheaval in what you're already doing with your South code. And if you've never done migrations before, then you're probably going to find this very simple idea. So how do we actually get to use the 1.7 stuff even though it's not currently released? Well, if we go to the download page for the Django project, they've already put a link on there to the most current release candidate, which it's not the actual stable approved version, because we're still saying that the official version is 1.6.6. It's the candidate, the release candidate version that people are currently having a try of. So to download that, what we're going to do is first of all create ourselves a virtual environment, which I've already done here in my migrations folder, and I've activated it, as you can see. So then I'm just going to use that command from the site, which basically says pip install and then this URL to the place where they've stuck the tarball archive for it, and then pip will go away, and as if by magic it will download it and unpack it and use that as our default Django install. I'm not going to run this command because I've already done that, but that's basically what you'll do. It'll take over for a little while and hopefully return you back to the command line without any errors. And the next stage is just to basically generate ourselves a project file. So you use Django admin to do that. So Django admin start project, and in this case I'm going to use the name new underscore migrations as my project. I won't run that right now because I've already done that myself, just to speed things up. Then the next thing we do is go into our new project folder, and we need to create a app. Now again, just to reiterate, as a little shortcut that I like to show people, because most people tend or can do type Python manage py. You can shorten that if you like by doing a one-off command that will basically add in executable permissions to your manage script, and it's chmod space plus x space manage py. And that basically means that from now on manage py is an executable program on its own, and it'll run itself whenever we need to do that. So we can then do the start app command here. I'm going to use articles because that's basically what I've done throughout the series, so I want to keep it simple just as an example. So create that manage articles, or rather that articles app, and then we should see inside the folder structure the same thing again, articles, and we have our main app folder there. These two other things is because I'm using an IDE with mine, which I encourage everyone to use at least one IDE in their lifespan. Some people prefer not to. I personally think that it takes a lot of the the headache out of that sort of remembering a lot of stuff that you don't really need to remember, and the IDE can help you to do that. Okay, so enough politics, let's get back to the development side of things. So in our folder structure we have articles, and we have admin, which isn't or wasn't there by default in your normal systems. Just going to pause there because some idiot's got an angle grinder outside, which is just basically ruining my audio. So back in 2 seconds. Okay, so hopefully you should be able to hear me properly now. Right, so we have a app folder here, and inside of here we have a few extras that you wouldn't get in previous versions of Django. So we have a migrations folder, and currently it only contains an init.py because we haven't actually created a migration yet. We have an admin folder, file rather. We have tests and views, and obviously our models file. So to get the thing rolling, we need to go to our installed apps section and just include articles in the installed apps section, so that the Django framework knows that this exists, and when we start running our migrations commands, it'll start to know where to find this. In our models.py, we're just going to start by creating a article model, and we're going to give it a title, which will be a text. Oh, seem to have the inability to type properly today, so let's just make that a short title, and the body of the text, text field, we'll just leave that as it is. Okay, so we've created a basic model. How do we actually use the migration system to create this in the database? Okay, so as you can see, I've already created a db.sqlite 3. Now I'm just going to remove that because I'm going to demonstrate something to you here. The first thing we need to do to include the new model into our migration system is use this command here, make migrations. Now this is the new migrations command, and the second command we'll use is migrate. So we make the migrations files and then we migrate with it. So let's just do the first command. So manage make migrations for articles, and that creates us the first file, the initial migration file, just down here. And if we go back into Wing, we've now got a migration file here. We open that up, you can see it has a new structure. If you've seen a migration in South, this is not what you'd expect to see in a South migration. It contains two default parts to it. So we have a migration class with a dependencies list. Now this will make more sense when I show you the other migrations that we're about to do in a second, so I'll skip over that for the time being. Operations is a list of things that need to be done, and in this case we have a migrations create model operation to be done. We're going to create an article model, then we're going to give it some fields, and as you can see it's using these fields from the models section. Now, if you've seen South, it doesn't do it that way. It uses a slightly different technique. But I think this is more in keeping with the Django way of thinking. So this makes more sense if you're used to using models in Django. So it automatically adds in an auto field, which we didn't ask it to do. But then it adds in our title and body fields that we defined in our class earlier. Like there. And that is basically the first migration. So how do we actually do the migration? Well, as simple as using management py migrate. Now also you can see in the system that it's created a db.sqlite3 file, which is the default file name that's set up in the settings.py file. But it's also created content types, auth, admin, articles and sessions all in one go. So we didn't have to run syncdb like we used to. We just did migrating. Because it's the first time it's migrated anything and created the database, it knows to do that automatically. So what did we create? Well, in our database, if I just open it up, in our tables, we've got an articles article table and all the other support folders, including the Django migrations tables inside the database. So all of that is done for us out of the tin. So the next thing is that what would happen if we were to then make changes to the model. So let's make a small change to the model and see how that affects things. So the model, let's just close that migration because we won't look at that. In the model, we're going to add in the likes field that we did in a previous tutorial. Models, and we'll call that an integer field, and the default actually no, I'll leave that blank and I'll show you what happens if you don't specify a default in the migrations. So again, we do manage py make migrations for article or articles, the plural, and then if we run that, it says you are trying to add a non-nullable field likes to article without a default. We can't do that, so choose what you want to do. Do you want to quit or do you want to provide a one-off default now? Well, I'm going to provide a one-off default and the answer is 0 likes. So you can choose to add in a default in your code, or at this point you can also choose to add in the migration, what the default should be. The choice is yours. I would prefer to do it in code myself, but there is an option to do that, and I wanted to show you that option there. So what happens when we go back into the code and look at that migration is that we see now the dependencies part of the migration becomes important. So article likes is our next migration that was created, and now the dependencies section includes articles 001 initial. Why is that important? Well, because it's saying that this migration here can't go ahead unless that migration has been done. Now notice it also says articles, and that's a reference to the app that needs to run that migration. So say we had a different app inside of here, so we had articles and then maybe I don't know, some other app that depended upon this articles app being up to date. We would then be able to specify the migrations from that other app in this dependencies, and this actual migration wouldn't go ahead unless it went and did the migrations for the other app first. and therefore it will avoid any collisions with dependent apps that need migrations run at the same time. So on the operations, we've got an add field operation, which basically says on the model, add the name likes, and the field type is integer field, preserve default. The default is actually 0, so we could, in our models, we could have said default like that, but we chose to tell the command line that's the way we wanted it done. Okay, so we've seen two new features there: the dependencies, which allows us to track migrations from this particular app, but also link in with migrations from another app that depends upon it. Then we've also seen that there's a new command to add a field. So if we quit that, again, 3 guesses how we're going to actually run this. Yeah, manage py migrate, and that adds in the third migration. So what happens in the case that we then want to create a relationship? Let's create a second model that depends or has a relationship inside of our article. So in previous tutorials we added in a comments class, didn't we? So let's do that. And we will make an article, and it will be a model foreign key yeah, that's the right way around. Just puzzling because obviously foreign key basically means it's a one-to-many relationship, so I was just double checking whether I was doing that the right way around, because comment can have one article, but article can have multiple comments, so that's the right way around. At least I think it is anyway. And okay, so with that we need I don't know, some text for our comment. So model text field, we'll just make that any size you like, and then we will just save that. Again, we run the manage py make migrations for articles, and that creates our next migration. Let's go and have a look what that third migration actually does. So we can see the dependencies now says that this depends on the previous migration, which was 002. So 002 depends on 001 and 003 depends on 002, so that's correct. Now we have the create model operation in here, and we give it its default fields. We also add in a foreign key to the article's article model, so you can see that it's namespaced this article model. So there we have the relationship established between this comment model and the articles model. So now that we've done that, guess what we're going to do next? Yeah, it's really complicated. We're just going to basically run the migration by doing manage py migrate. We could, however, if we wanted to just migrate one particular place or one particular app, we could specify the name of the app there, but I just went ahead and did migrate anyway. So then we've done our 3 migrations. Now, what does that give us in the database? If I just open up the database and show you the schema, we've got articles article, then we have articles comment, and inside of there we've got an ID, which we got by default, a text field, and then an article ID, which links us into the articles article field just here, which includes our likes also. Okay, so that's pretty much how it works. Now, some of you might be inclined to go, okay, so that's all very nice and well, but what if I want to roll back? To roll back, all you need to do is find out the number of the migration that you want to roll back to. So, for instance, in our articles folder, under migrations, we have 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So say I wanted to roll back to version 2 or number 2. All I do is I do manage.py migrate and then the name of the migration I want to go back to. Okay, I didn't expect that to happen. I'm just going to pause while I find out what happened. Okay, so apparently I'm a bit thick today, so what I actually did was I attempted to clear a migration cold, or I tried to clear or migrate back to an app called 0002. What I should have done is I should have put in article, or even articles, if I was even going to bother trying spelling it properly. Okay, so as you can tell, even people who've been doing this for years can act a bit stupid. But the end of the result is that you can actually bump back to whatever version of the migrations you want to do. And if you want to continue to go back after you've done some tweaking to that particular migration, you can then go back forward just by doing migrate articles. So there you go. Okay, right, so that's everything I wanted to cover in this tutorial. I hope that you found that interesting and informative, and if you need any help, then please pop me an email across and I'll do the best I can to help you out. Thanks for watching.